The USNS Hope gleamed like a star against the darkness of space. White and red markings covered its hull, showing everyone who saw it that this was a ship of healing, not war. At nearly 2 miles long, the Hope was the largest hospital ship humans had ever built. Captain Susan Moore stood on the bridge, her gray eyes scanning the dozens of screens that surrounded her. After 20 years in space, she still felt a thrill each time a ship left Earth's orbit. But this mission was special. "Status report," she called, her voice calm but firm. "All systems go, Captain," replied Officer Sam Wells from his station. "Engine room reports full power. Medical bays report ready status." Susan nodded. "Good. Set course for Vega Colony. Standard speed." The Hope carried over 3,000 medical staff and enough supplies to treat an entire planet. Vega Colony had sent urgent messages about a strange illness spreading through their population. Earth had responded immediately. 6 decks below, Dr. Alan Wright hurried through crowded hallways. Doctors, nurses, and technicians moved with purpose, checking equipment and preparing treatment areas. As Chief Medical Officer, Alan felt responsible for everyone on board. "Dr. Wright, call the voice." Alan turned to see Nurse Kevin Phillips approaching with a tablet in hand. Kevin was young but skilled, with steady hands and a calm mind. "The vaccine samples are secured, and the lab is ready," Kevin reported. "But we're still loading the last of the blood supplies." Alan checked his watch. "We have 2 hours before departure. Make sure everything is locked down by then." "Yes, sir," Kevin replied before rushing off. In the main cargo bay, Lisa Grant directed a team loading the final supplies. As logistics officer, Lisa had spent weeks planning every detail of this mission. "Those scanners go to Bay 4. She instructed a group of workers moving delicate equipment. "And be careful with those containers. They contain sensitive medications." Lisa checked items off her list as they moved past. This was her 6th mission on a hospital ship, but never to a place so far from Earth. Vega Colony was 2 weeks of travel away, even with the Hope's advanced engines. The Hope was not just carrying standard medical supplies. In a special secured section, it also carried experimental treatments that Earth's best scientists had developed. These new medicines might be the only hope for the sick colonists. Final inspection complete, Lisa reported into her communicator. Cargo secured for departure. Captain Moore's voice came through the ship's speakers. "All personnel, prepare for departure in 30 minutes. I repeat, departure in 30 minutes." In her private office, Susan reviewed the mission briefing one more time. Earth had only been part of the Galactic Confederation for 15 years. Humans were still new to interstellar politics. Many older races watched them with suspicion or interest. The Draconis Empire was the most concerning. These reptilian beings controlled dozens of star systems near Vega. They had objected when humans first settled the colony there 5 years ago. Now, with this medical crisis, tensions were rising again. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," Susan called. Ambassador John Miller stepped in. As the diplomatic officer assigned to the Hope, it was his job to handle any political issues during their journey. "Captain, I've received the final clearances from Confederation Space Control," he said. "We're approved for travel through all sectors to Vega." "Any word from the Draconis?" Susan asked. John shook his head. "Nothing direct. Their representatives at the Confederation Council said they have no objection to a medical mission." "Let's hope they mean it," Susan replied. An hour later, the massive ship eased away from Earth's orbital dock. Smaller vessels escorted it to the jump point, where it would begin its journey to Vega. On the main viewing screen, Earth grew smaller, a blue and white jewel against the blackness of space. Many crew members paused to watch their homeworld fade from view. "Course set, Captain," reported Navigator Tim Reed. "Engines at full power." "Take us out, Mr. Reed," ordered Susan. "Those people need our help." The Hope's engines flared bright blue as the great ship accelerated toward the stars, carrying hope to those who waited in pain and fear. 3 days into their journey, the USNS Hope moved smoothly through the darkness of space. The medical team had settled into their routines, preparing for the work ahead at Vega Colony. In the ship's many treatment rooms, doctors and nurses checked equipment and studied the latest reports on the mystery illness. Captain Susan Moore sat in her command chair, reviewing the day's status reports. The journey had been peaceful so far. The ship's massive engines hummed quietly, pushing them toward their destination at a steady pace. "Captain," called Paul Young from the communication station. His voice had an edge to it that made Susan look up. "I'm detecting several ships approaching at high speed." Susan straightened in her chair. "Identification." Paul's fingers moved quickly over his controls. "None yet. They're not responding to standard hails." "Put it on the main screen," Susan ordered. The large screen at the front of the bridge showed 3 dark ships moving rapidly toward them. Their design was sharp and angular, unlike the smooth curves of human vessels. "Those look like Draconis warships," said Navigator Tim Reed, his voice low. Susan pressed her comm button. "Security, this is the captain. Alert status." Security Chief Olivia Martinez responded immediately. "Alert status confirmed, Captain. But I remind you that we have minimal defensive capabilities." "I know," Susan replied. "This is a hospital ship. They'll recognize that." Paul Young tried again to contact the approaching vessels. "Unknown ships, this is the USNS Hope, a medical vessel from Earth. Please identify yourselves." Only silence answered him. "They're increasing speed," Tim reported, his eyes on the radar. "Weapons systems activating on all 3 ships." Susan felt her heart rate increase but kept her voice steady. "Broadcast on all frequencies. Make it clear we are a hospital ship on a mercy mission to Vega Colony. Send our Confederation registry and clearance codes." Paul worked frantically at his station. "Broadcasting now, Captain." Adding emergency medical vessel identifiers to the signal. On the screen, the 3 ships continued their approach. Their shapes grew larger, revealing the distinctive markings of Draconis military vessels. "They're not slowing down," Tim said, tension clear in his voice. Susan pressed the ship-wide communication button. "All personnel, this is the captain. Secure all patients and equipment. Possible emergency situation developing." In Medical Bay 3, Dr. Alan Wright heard the announcement and immediately began directing his team. "Move the critical care patients to the central base. Secure all medications and equipment." Nurse Kevin Phillips rushed to help a patient in a biobed. "Everything will be fine," he assured the worried colonist they had picked up at a way station. "Just a precaution." Back on the bridge, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. "Captain, they're charging weapons." Tim's voice rose in disbelief. "That's impossible," Susan said. "We're clearly marked as a hospital ship. It's against all Confederation laws to." A bright flash cut off her words as the first Draconis ship fired. The Hope shuddered as the energy blast struck its hull. "Damage report," Susan called out. Susan couldn't believe what was happening. "Continue broadcasting our status. Make it clear we are unarmed." Another blast hit the ship, stronger this time. The lights on the bridge flickered. "Shields at 60%, came the report. "Damage to medical storage areas on Deck 12. Susan made a difficult decision. Begin evacuation procedures. All non-essential personnel to escape pods. She pressed the ship-wide alert. "All hands, this is the captain. We are under attack. This is not a drill. Proceed to evacuation stations. Medical teams, begin moving patients to escape vessels." Throughout the huge ship, alarm signals blared. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Jack Peterson directed his team to keep power flowing to the shields. "We need to give people time to get out," he shouted over the noise of another impact. In Medical Bay 6, Dr. Wright faced an impossible choice. The patients in critical care couldn't be moved to escape pods. The journey would kill them. "I'm staying with them," he told Kevin. Get as many others out as you can. Kevin shook his head. Sir, you can't. That's an order, Alan said firmly. Go. On the bridge, Susan watched in horror as a massive blast tore through the Hope's midsection. Direct hit to the main medical bay, Tim reported, his voice shaking. Multiple hull breaches. Susan stared at the screen, at the Draconis ships continuing their attack. Why? She whispered. Then, louder. All hands. Abandon ship. I repeat, abandon ship. As Susan gave the final evacuation order, she knew many would not make it off the Hope alive. And somewhere deep in her heart, a spark of fury began to burn. Escape Pod 17 tumbled through space, its emergency systems working hard to stabilize its flight path. Inside, 23 survivors huddled together, their faces pale with shock. The pod was designed for 15 people, making the cramped space even more uncomfortable. Nurse Kevin Phillips checked the vital signs of an injured crew member. His medical kit had limited supplies, but he was doing his best. Beside him, Officer Lisa Grant studied the pod's navigation system. Any signal from other pods? Kevin asked, his voice barely steady. Lisa shook her head. The communication system is damaged. I can send emergency beacons, but I can't receive anything. Through the small viewport, they could still see distant flashes as the Draconis ships continued their attack on what remained of the Hope. Kevin turned away from the sight, focusing instead on his patients. We have oxygen for 3 days, Lisa reported. Water for 2. We're on a drift path toward the shipping lanes. But she didn't need to finish. Their chances of being found before supplies ran out were slim. A young medical technician named Greg Weber sat in the corner, holding a small data device. I recorded it, he said quietly. When the attack started, I was in the observation deck. I recorded the whole thing. Lisa moved closer to him. You have proof the Draconis attacked without warning. Greg nodded. Everything. The hospital markings on our ship. The broadcasts we sent. Their first shots. It's all here. That could be important, Kevin said, if we survive. Hours passed slowly in the cramped pod. The injured needed constant care, and supplies were running dangerously low. On the second day, just as hope was beginning to fade, the pod's sensors detected a ship approaching. Could be Draconis coming back to finish the job, whispered one frightened crew member. Lisa checked the scanner. No, different design. I think yes, it's a Trill merchant vessel. The Trill were a peaceful trading species known for their neutrality in galactic politics. The survivors watched with growing hope as the much larger ship drew near, then extended a docking arm to their pod. Soon, they were brought aboard the merchant vessel Good Fortune. The Trill captain, a tall being with spotted skin, greeted them with concern. We detected your emergency beacon, Captain Zen said. What happened? Kevin, still treating patients even as they were transferred to the Trill ship's medical bay, looked up with tired eyes. Draconis warships attacked our hospital ship, the USNS Hope, without provocation or warning. Captain Zen's spotted face showed shock. A hospital ship. That violates all Confederation laws. We have proof, Lisa said, gesturing to Greg and his data device. Within hours, the Good Fortune had found 2 more escape pods, bringing the total survivors to 62. But the Hope had carried over 3,000 people. The loss was devastating. 5 days later, the first news reached Earth. The Trill ship had transmitted Greg's recording ahead, along with testimony from the survivors. When the images played on screens across Earth, showing the clearly marked hospital ship being attacked without warning, the reaction was immediate and powerful. In homes, offices, and public spaces, humans watched in horror as the Hope, on a mission of mercy, was destroyed. Reports of the death toll added to the growing anger. Over 2,000 medical personnel and patients gone. In Washington, President Carol Harris called an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. Her face was grim as she addressed the assembled officials. We have confirmed reports that our hospital ship USNS Hope was deliberately attacked and destroyed by Draconis forces, she announced. We have lost thousands of our people, doctors, nurses, support staff, and patients. Defense Secretary Mary Wilson spoke up. The Draconis Empire is claiming the Hope was carrying weapons and posed a threat to their security. That's a lie, said Admiral Steve Rodriguez, slamming his hand on the table. And we have proof. On screens around the room, Greg's recording played again. The evidence was undeniable. The Hope had been clearly marked with medical symbols recognized throughout the galaxy. It had broadcast its status continuously. The attack had been deliberate and unprovoked. President Harris stood, her face showing the anger that millions of humans around the world were feeling. Contact our ambassador to the Confederation, she ordered, and begin preparations for an appropriate response. The Draconis Empire has made a terrible mistake. They attacked our mercy. Now they will face our fury. As the recording spread across Earth and human colonies, a wave of grief and anger united humanity like never before. The message was clear. This would not stand unanswered. The Emergency Operations Center beneath the White House buzzed with tense activity. Screens lined the walls, showing military readiness reports, diplomatic communications, and the faces of colony leaders from across human space. At the center of the room, a large round table held the most powerful people on Earth. President Carol Harris sat straight-backed in her chair, listening as Admiral Steve Rodriguez outlined military options. We can deploy the Third Fleet immediately, the Admiral said, pointing to a star map. They can reach Draconis space within 2 weeks. Defense Secretary Mary Wilson frowned. And then what? The Draconis Empire has existed for thousands of years. Their military technology exceeds ours in many areas. So we should do nothing. Admiral Rodriguez asked, his voice rising. After they destroyed a hospital ship, President Harris raised a hand for calm. Let's hear from the survivors first. The door opened, and Nurse Kevin Phillips entered. He still wore the same uniform from the attack, now clean but permanently marked with scorched stains. His face showed the strain of the past week. Nurse Phillips, the president said gently, thank you for coming. Please tell us what you witnessed. Kevin's voice was quiet but steady as he described the attack. How clear the hospital markings had been on the Hope. How Captain Moore had repeatedly broadcast their medical mission status. How the Draconis ships had fired without warning or mercy. Dr. Wright stayed behind with patients who couldn't be moved, Kevin finished, his eyes distant with the memory. He knew he would die, but he wouldn't leave them alone. A heavy silence filled the room when he finished speaking. Intelligence Officer Adam Bell stepped forward next, thin and serious. Adam had spent years studying the Draconis Empire. This was not a mistake or misunderstanding, he said, activating a display. We've analyzed communications from within the Draconis military. This attack was planned months ago. The display showed intercepted messages between Draconis commanders. They saw our hospital ship as a perfect target to test our response. Adam explained. They believe humans are weak because we value compassion and healing. They think our mercy is weakness, President Harris said softly. Yes, Madam President, and they're preparing for more attacks. They believe we won't respond with significant force. Ambassador Daniel Green, who had just returned from the Confederation Council, spoke next. The other races are outraged by the attack, but hesitant to act against the Draconis. They fear their military power. As should we, Secretary Wilson cautioned. The Draconis have technology developed over millennia. We've only been in space for a century. Admiral Rodriguez straightened. But we have something they don't understand. Human determination and ingenuity. When backed into a corner, we don't give up. President Harris stood, walking slowly around the table. All eyes followed her. The Draconis made a critical error, she said. They judged us by their standards. They saw our hospital ship as weakness. They don't understand that our compassion and our fury come from the same source, our humanity. She stopped, looking at each person in turn. We are newcomers to the stars, but we bring with us the full weight of human history and determination. Throughout our past, those who mistake kindness for weakness have learned a hard lesson. The President turned to Admiral Rodriguez. Prepare a response, but with limitations. I want a surgical strike. Target only those directly responsible for the attack. No civilian casualties. A limited response. The Admiral asked, surprised. Yes, President Harris nodded firmly. We will show the galaxy that humans fight when necessary, but we don't seek vengeance or conquest. We seek justice. She turned to the rest of the council. The Draconis and the watching Confederation will learn that Earth can be both merciful and mighty. We will strike with precision and power, not out of blind rage but controlled fury. Ambassador Green smiled slightly. They expect either no response or all-out war. This middle path will surprise them. Exactly, the President said. Launch Operation Righteous Mercy. Show the galaxy what happens when someone attacks a human hospital ship. As the meeting ended and plans began forming, Kevin Phillips felt something he hadn't experienced since the attack. Hope. The faces around him showed grim determination. Earth would respond, and the Draconis would learn that human mercy had sharp teeth. Jupiter Station hummed with activity unlike anything seen since its construction. Ships arrived hourly, bringing soldiers, supplies, and equipment from Earth and the colonies. The massive space station, normally a center for scientific research and trade, had transformed into a military staging area. At the center of the gathering fleet floated the ESS Vindication, Earth's newest and most powerful carrier. Its sleek hull gleamed under the distant sunlight, weapons systems ready but dormant. Around it clustered dozens of smaller warships and support vessels. On the Vindication's bridge, Captain Ryan Clark studied tactical displays. At 42, Ryan was known throughout Earth's space forces as a brilliant strategist. He had been pulled from teaching at the Academy to lead this mission. Status report, he said to his executive officer. All ships report ready, Captain, replied Commander Ellenboard. The last Marine transport just docked. Ryan nodded. And the new shield technology. Engineer Kelly is bringing it aboard now. In Docking Bay 3, Engineer Laura Kelly supervised as technicians unloaded equipment from her shuttle. Laura had barely slept in the 2 weeks since the Hope's destruction. Working with a team of scientists, she had developed a new technology that could penetrate Draconis shields. Careful with that component, she warned as workers moved a large device. It's calibrated precisely. A tall Marine approached her. Colonel Frank Murphy had the weathered face of a career soldier, with kind eyes that contrasted with his tough appearance. Is this stuff really going to work? He asked Laura. She wiped sweat from her forehead. In the lab, yes. We've never tested it in actual combat. Well, we're about to, Frank said. Laura looked up at him. Your Marines ready? Frank nodded. Been training day and night. We've studied everything we know about Draconis ships and fighting techniques. Across the station in the Intelligence Center, Officer Kate Morris debriefed after her covert mission. She had spent months undercover on a trading post near Draconis space, gathering information. They're confident and arrogant, she explained to the officers around her. The commander who ordered the attack on the Hope is Admiral Zorax. He's stationed here. She pointed to a location on the star map. Their outpost at Cygnus 4 is where the attacking ships came from. Security is strong but focused outward. They don't expect anyone to actually attack them. Back on the Vindication, Captain Clark addressed the gathered ship commanders through a video link. Their faces filled screens around him, each representing a vessel in the fleet. Our mission is precise and limited, Ryan explained. We target the Draconis command base at Cygnus 4. We capture those responsible for the hospital ship attack. We avoid civilian casualties at all costs. He switched the display to show the attack plan. Engineer Kelly's new shield penetration technology will give us a critical advantage. Colonel Murphy's Marines will board and secure the command vessel. Intelligence Officer Morris has provided exact locations of our targets. Ryan paused, looking at each commander. This is not about revenge. This is about justice. We show the galaxy that humans protect their healers and punish those who break the laws of war. As the briefing ended, Ryan returned to his quarters for a moment of quiet. On his desk sat a photo of his sister, who had been a nurse on the Hope. She was among the missing, presumed dead. He touched the picture briefly, then returned to the bridge. Throughout the fleet, final preparations were underway. Marines checked their equipment, pilots ran last simulations, and medical teams prepared for casualties. In engineering sections, Laura's new technology was installed and tested on every ship. Ambassador Daniel Green continued diplomatic efforts at the Confederation Council, ensuring other races understood Earth's limited objectives. Some offered quiet support, impressed by human restraint in the face of such loss. President Harris addressed the fleet from Earth, her image appearing on screens throughout the ships. "You carry with you the hopes of all humanity," she said. "Show the galaxy who we truly are, a people of peace who will fight when necessary, with precision and determination." As her message ended, Captain Clark gave the order. "All ships prepare for departure." The massive engines of the Vindication powered up, followed by the rest of the fleet. One by one, they moved away from Jupiter Station, forming a perfect formation. "Course set for Cygnus 4, reported the navigation officer. Ryan nodded. "Take us out." The fleet accelerated, disappearing into the depths of space. Operation Righteous Mercy had begun. The Earth fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Cygnus 4 system. 27 ships, moving in perfect formation, their weapons ready but not yet active. At the center, the ESS Vindication led the way toward the Draconis military outpost. On the Vindication's bridge, Captain Ryan Clark watched the main screen as the Draconis base came into view. It was an impressive structure, a massive station surrounded by defensive platforms and patrol ships. "Any reaction to our arrival?" Ryan asked. Communications Officer Andrea Nelson listened to her equipment. "They're hailing us, Captain, demanding to know our purpose." Ryan nodded. "Open a channel." Andrea pressed several controls. "Channel open." "This is Captain Ryan Clark of the Earth spaceship Vindication," Ryan said clearly. "We have come for those responsible for the attack on our hospital ship, the USNS Hope." A harsh voice responded, speaking accented but clear English. "This is Commander Drex of the Draconis Defense Force. Your presence here is a violation of our territory. Leave immediately or face destruction." Ryan's face remained calm. "Not until justice is served. We have proof that Admiral Zorax ordered the illegal attack on our unarmed medical vessel. Your pathetic fleet is no match for Draconis power," Commander Drex replied. "This is your final warning." Ryan turned to Andrea. "Broadcast the recording of the Hope's destruction on all frequencies. Let everyone in this system see what they did." Andrea nodded, uploading the video that Greg Weber had recorded from the escape pod. The images of the clearly marked hospital ship being attacked without provocation went out to every ship and station in the system. "Draconis vessels powering weapons," reported the tactical officer. "Raise shields," Ryan ordered. "All ships, defensive positions. Activate Engineer Kelly's shield penetrators." Throughout the fleet, the new technology hummed to life. On engineering decks, Laura Kelly and her team monitored the systems they had worked so hard to create. "It's working perfectly," Laura reported through the comm system. "Shield penetrators at full power." The Draconis fired first. Bright energy beams streaked toward the Earth fleet. But instead of the devastating impact they expected, the beams seemed to weaken as they passed through a field generated by Kelly's technology. "Minimal damage to our shields," reported the tactical officer, surprise in her voice. Ryan allowed himself a small smile. "Now, execute Maneuver Delta." The Earth ships moved with unexpected speed and coordination. Instead of facing the Draconis head-on as expected, they split into 3 groups, attacking from multiple angles. It was a tactic Ryan had developed during years of strategic studies, perfect against the rigid Draconis formation. Target their weapon systems only, Ryan ordered. Disable, don't destroy. The Earth fleet fired with surgical precision. One by one, Draconis ships lost weapons capabilities but remained intact. On the Draconis command ship, Admiral Zorax watched in growing alarm as his forces were systematically disabled. The reptilian commander had expected either no response from the humans or a clumsy, all-out attack that his superior forces could easily crush. This precise, controlled assault was something he had not prepared for. Launch all fighters, he ordered. Hundreds of small Draconis attack craft poured from the larger ships. They swarmed toward the Earth fleet, weapons blazing. They've launched fighters, Ryan observed calmly. Colonel Murphy, you're cleared to deploy. In the Vindication's launch bay, Colonel Frank Murphy led his Marines into their assault craft. Remember your training. He called to his troops. We go in fast. We secure our targets. We get out. No unnecessary casualties. The Marine vessels shot out from the Vindication, their advanced engines allowing them to weave through the Draconis fighters. While the Draconis expected them to engage in dogfights, the Earth vessels instead raced straight for the command ship. They're heading for the command ship, a Draconis officer reported to Admiral Zorax. Impossible, Zorax hissed. Our shields are at full power. But as the Marine vessels approached, they passed through the Draconis shields as if they weren't there. Laura's technology was working perfectly. Colonel Murphy's vessel was the first to attach to the hull of the command ship. Cutting tools quickly opened a way inside. Murphy led his Marines through the breach, moving with practiced efficiency through the corridors. Throughout the system, other races watched in amazement. The humans, thought to be technologically inferior, were systematically dismantling the Draconis defense force without destroying a single ship. Back on the Vindication, Ryan received reports from across the battlefield. The Great Chamber of the Galactic Confederation Council fell silent as Ambassador Daniel Green walked to the speaking platform. Representatives from over 200 species watched from their seats arranged in rising tiers. At the center of the chamber stood Admiral Zorax and his commanders, guarded by human Marines. Daniel looked around the vast space before speaking. 3 weeks had passed since Operation Righteous Mercy. The evidence against the Draconis was overwhelming and had been shared with all Confederation members. Honored representatives, Daniel began, his voice clear and strong. Earth came to the stars as explorers and healers. The USNS Hope carried medicine to the sick. It threatened no one. It was clearly marked as a medical vessel. Screens around the chamber displayed images of the hospital ship, its Red Cross symbol visible on every side. The unprovoked destruction of this vessel cost over 2,000 lives. Doctors, nurses, and patients who had dedicated themselves to saving others. Admiral Zorax glared at Daniel, his scaled face showing no remorse. The Draconis Empire expected one of two responses from us, Daniel continued. Either weakness and inaction, or blind rage and all-out war. They understood neither humanity nor our values. He gestured to the Draconis commander. Earth's response was measured and precise. We captured those responsible with minimal casualties. We now bring them before this council for justice under Confederation law. The Draconis representative rose to speak. The human vessel was suspected of carrying weapons. We acted in self-defense. Murmurs of disbelief ran through the chamber. Daniel activated another screen, showing the detailed scans of the Hope made before its departure from Earth. The Hope carried 212 surgical units, 5,000 units of blood plasma, vaccines for 17 diseases, and experimental treatments for the Vega colony outbreak. The only weapons aboard were 10 security officers' sidearms, standard protection for any vessel. He looked directly at the Draconis representative. Admiral Zorax's own records, captured during our operation, show that this attack was planned months in advance. It was a deliberate test of human resolve. The head of the council, an elder Arcturian, spoke gravely. The evidence is clear. How does Earth wish the Council to proceed? Daniel's answer surprised many. We ask for justice, not vengeance. The Draconis Empire must acknowledge its crime, pay reparations to the families of those lost, and submit to Confederation monitoring of its military activities for 10 years. The council chamber buzzed with conversation. Many had expected humans to demand harsher punishment. We came to this galaxy as healers and explorers, Daniel said, his voice quieting the room again. We respond to violence only when forced. We seek peace through understanding, not through dominance. After hours of deliberation, the council announced its decision. The Draconis would face all the penalties Earth had requested, plus the demilitarization of the Cygnus 4 outpost. Admiral Zorax and his commanders would be imprisoned for war crimes. 1 week later, on Earth, thousands gathered for a memorial service honoring those lost on the Hope. President Harris unveiled a monument, a large statue showing a doctor kneeling to help a wounded patient. Dr. Alan Wright stayed with his patients until the end, the president said during their speech. Today, we award him and all medical personnel of the Hope our highest civilian honor. Kevin Phillips watched from the audience, a new pin on his uniform. He had joined the crew of a new hospital ship being commissioned. The USNS Phoenix will continue the mission of the Hope, President Harris announced. Under the command of Commander Julie Moore, sister of Captain Susan Moore, it will carry healing to all who need it. She turned toward the assembled military officers. And this time, it will have an escort. The galaxy has learned that Earth's mercy comes with teeth. 3 months later, the Phoenix departed Earth orbit. Larger than the Hope and equipped with the latest medical technology, it would carry on the humanitarian work of its predecessor. Around it flew 6 escort vessels, their weapons inactive but ready. On the bridge of the lead escort ship, Captain Ryan Clark watched as the Phoenix set course for its first mission. They thought our compassion was weakness, he said quietly to his executive officer. Now they understand. It is the source of our strength. Across the galaxy, races that had once viewed humans as naive newcomers reassessed their opinions. The Draconis had learned a costly lesson about human nature. Mercy and fury were 2 sides of the same coin. Attack one who heals, and you face the wrath of all. The message spread throughout known space. Humans would travel the stars as friends, healers, and explorers.